Hey everyone! The grocery store has started to feel like a dystopian novel come to life. Shelves are empty, and the items that are left seem to have skyrocketed in price. Everything is getting more expensive, and I mean everything. From basic staples like bread and milk to fresh produce and even canned goods. But today, we're not just talking about the price of a gallon of milk, we're talking about the potential collapse of the entire system. Imagine a world where even the simplest grocery run feels like a luxury. Increased holiday demand, winter storms wreaking havoc on transportation, and oh yeah, the looming threat of global whatever the heck is happening. It's a perfect storm of factors driving prices through the roof. Buckle up, Buttercup, because we're diving deep into the 30 grocery items that just might cost you an arm and a leg this December. Welcome to our channel. We're here to help you navigate this grocery price apocalypse. Today we're diving into a topic that's on everyone's mind: rising food prices. It's not just a local issue. It's a global phenomenon affecting everyone. Stick around to find out which grocery products might become priceless this December and why. We'll break down the reasons behind these price hikes and offer some tips on how to cope. Let's start with the foundation of a healthy diet: fruits and vegetables. These vibrant, nutrient-packed foods are essential for our well-being, providing vitamins, minerals, and fiber that keep us healthy. But here's the thing: getting fresh produce to your plate in the dead of winter, it's not as simple as it seems. It's a logistical nightmare even in the best of times. The supply chains that bring these fresh items to our stores are incredibly complex and fragile. Now imagine those delicate supply chains already stretched thin, being hit by winter storms, fuel shortages, and who knows what else December might throw at us. The challenges multiply, making it even harder to get fresh produce. Suddenly, that juicy strawberry you were craving is starting to look a lot more like a luxury item. The scarcity drives up prices, making it less accessible for many, and that's just the beginning. As we face more unpredictable weather and supply chain disruptions, the cost and availability of fresh produce could become an even bigger issue. Next up, let's talk about imported goods. That exotic fruit basket you were planning on for your holiday party? Yeah, might need to rethink that one, because when global trade routes are disrupted, those once commonplace treats become precious commodities. Think about it. Coffee from Colombia, chocolate from Switzerland, spices from India, all suddenly at the mercy of forces far beyond our control. Now let's talk about those processed foods that line the grocery store aisles. You know, the ones with the mile-long ingredient lists and the shelf life of a geological era? Yeah, even those aren't safe. Because behind those brightly colored packages lies a complex web of ingredients, factories, and transportation networks. And when even one piece of that intricate puzzle goes missing, the whole system grinds to a halt. That box of crackers? Suddenly a luxury. And for those of you who enjoy the finer things in life, those artisanal cheeses, those exotic mushrooms, those small-batch hot sauces, well, get ready to say goodbye. Because when the world is struggling to put food on the table, those niche products, those culinary indulgences, they're the first to go. Remember those childhood dreams of swimming in a pool of milk and honey? Yeah, those are officially canceled. Because dairy, that staple of so many diets, is facing its own perfect storm of problems. Rising feed costs, labor shortages in the agricultural industry, and those ever-increasing transportation costs all add up to one thing: dairy products becoming as precious as liquid gold. Now, for the meat eaters out there, brace yourselves. Because the price of meat, already on the rise, is about to reach new heights. Demand for meat continues to grow, while the resources required to produce it are becoming increasingly scarce. Add in the rising costs of feed, labor, and transportation, and you've got yourself a recipe for a meatless December. Canned goods, those trusty staples we always rely on in times of crisis. But what happens when the crisis is the new normal? That can of soup, that can of beans, that can of fruit, they all represent a system pushed to its breaking point. Let's talk about oils and fats. Those essential ingredients that make our food taste good and our bodies function properly. But here's the rub: producing and transporting these essential liquids is about to get a whole lot more complicated. From olive oil to vegetable oil, we're facing a global shortage of epic proportions. Wheat, rice, corn, the very cornerstones of civilization. These humble grains form the foundation of our diets, feeding billions around the world. But what happens when the staff of life starts to crumble? For many of us, coffee and tea aren't just beverages, they're rituals. They're the warm hug that gets us out of bed in the morning, the comforting companion on a cold winter's night. But as climate change wreaks havoc on coffee and tea-producing regions, those comforting rituals are at risk. Chocolate, the ultimate indulgence, the food of the gods. But what happens when the gods decide they want to keep all the chocolate for themselves? Cocoa bean production is facing an unprecedented crisis. Almonds, walnuts, cashews. These nutrient-packed powerhouses are more than just tasty snacks. But as water scarcity, climate change, and labor shortages grip the regions where these nuts and seeds are grown, their prices are set to skyrocket. Spices, those little pinches of flavor that can transform a bland dish into a culinary masterpiece. But what happens when the spice trade starts to unravel? Remember when we talked about fresh produce being a luxury? Well, it's time to revisit that, because things are about to get even more dire. As winter tightens its grip, transportation costs skyrocket, and the availability of seasonal workers plummets. The cost of fresh fruits and vegetables is set to reach truly astronomical heights. That salad you were planning on? Forget about it. Those fresh berries for your morning smoothie? A distant dream. Remember that feeling of interconnectedness, that sense of wonder that came from enjoying foods from all corners of the globe? Well, say goodbye to that. Processed foods, those convenient, affordable staples that have become synonymous with modern life. But as the systems that produce and distribute these foods begin to buckle under the strain, we're about to confront an uncomfortable truth. Our reliance on processed foods has come at a steep cost. Remember when we talked about specialty foods being the first to go? Well, guess what? They're pretty much gone. In a world grappling with food shortages and skyrocketing prices, there's simply no room for those niche products, those culinary indulgences that once seemed so abundant. The age of artisanal everything is over. Remember that carton of milk in your fridge, that block of cheese in your refrigerator drawer? Those are no longer everyday staples. Those are luxury items, symbols of a bygone era when dairy products were abundant, affordable, and readily available. But those days are over. Remember when we talked about meat becoming a rarity? Well, that day has arrived. The days of cheap, abundant meat are over. The future of protein is plant-based, and it's time to start exploring those alternatives. Remember when we talked about canned goods being our lifeline in times of crisis? Well, those cans of beans, those cans of soup, those cans of fruit, they're more valuable than ever. In a world where fresh food is scarce and expensive, canned goods are the new currency. Remember when we talked about oils and fats being essential for our health and well-being? Well, they're about to become even more essential. As global production dwindles and demand continues to rise, oils and fats are poised to become the most sought-after commodities on the planet. Remember when we talked about the staff of life crumbling? Well, the crumble has become a full-blown collapse. The world's reliance on a handful of staple crops has come back to haunt us, as climate change, political instability, and economic uncertainty converge to create a global food crisis of unprecedented proportions. This isn't just about rising prices anymore. Remember that morning cup of coffee, that afternoon cup of tea, those little luxuries that helped us get through the day? Well, those luxuries are about to become a whole lot more luxurious. Remember chocolate? That sweet, indulgent treat that brought us so much joy? Well, it's time to start forgetting about it. Remember those bags of nuts and seeds we used to mindlessly snack on? Well, those snacks have become essential survival rations. Remember when we talked about spices adding flavor to our lives? Well, in a world where food is scarce and bland, spices have become more than just flavor enhancers. Remember when we talked about fresh produce becoming a luxury? Well, it's no longer a luxury. It's a necessity, a symbol of hope in a world grappling with hunger and despair. Remember that feeling of interconnectedness that came from enjoying foods from around the world? Well, that feeling has been replaced by a sense of isolation as global trade routes collapse and countries turn inward. Remember our addiction to processed foods? Our reliance on those convenient, affordable, but ultimately unhealthy products? Well, the global food crisis has been a wake-up call. The grocery store shelves may be emptying, the prices may be skyrocketing, but there's still hope. We have the power to change course, to create a more resilient, equitable, and sustainable food system. It's time to demand better from our leaders, to support our local farmers, and to make conscious choices about the food we eat. So, there you have it. The 30 grocery items that just might cost you an arm and a leg this December and beyond. Prices are skyrocketing, and it's affecting everyone, from families to small businesses. It's a bleak picture, but it's not hopeless. There are people out there fighting for change, planting seeds of hope in community gardens and standing up for food justice. We have the power to change course, to build a more resilient and equitable food system. By supporting local farmers and sustainable practices, we can make a difference. But we have to act now. Support your local farmers, reduce food waste, and be mindful of where your food comes from. Make your voice heard on issues of food justice. Attend community meetings, join local initiatives, and advocate for policies that support a fair food system. Because in the end, food is more than just sustenance, it's connection. It's community. It's life itself. Sharing a meal brings us together, and together we can create a better future.